Hello, everybody. Welcome to SN Off the Shelf. Chloe Riley here, executive editor of Supermarket News. Today I am joined by the great Anne-Marie Roerink, president of 210 Analytics. Anne-Marie, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was wonderful to see you last week at the Sweets and Snacks Expo.
Yeah, so Anne-Marie and I we have never met in person because of the nature of virtual work. And so we were actually in person touring the Sweets and Snacks show this past weekend, or this past week, I guess, at McCormick Center in Chicago. And, it was a total delight to be around that much sugar at one time, I will say, Anne-Marie. Was that your experience as well?
Yeah, as we know, I cover many different industries from meat and produce to frozen and bakery, and I have to say the Sweets and Snacks Expo is one of my favorite, and not just because it's candy and who doesn't love candy, but certainly just the visual as you come up the stairs, the colors, just the emotional connections, if you will, that we all have to so many brands. And it's just a really wonderful experience to walk around and see some of those big and small snack and candy brands.
Yeah, I love that feeling of seeing what seeing what the bigger guys are doing, like seeing what's new from Frito-Lay or yeah, some of those big guys, and the innovation that's happening at that level is really fun to be around.
For sure. And then same,
Yeah.
I always tell people that don't go to a lot of conferences. I always tell them, go to those 10 by 10s because that's really where, you see some really cool innovation. Those tend to be brand new companies of somebody that's invented something completely different from a texture, a taste, or maybe a snack that is popular in a different country but hasn't quite made it into the US. So those are actually some of my favorites to browse as well.
Yeah, yeah. I know one of my takeaways from this was my first time at the Sweets and Snacks show, and I know one of my takeaways was just I love your perspective on this because I'm sure you have gone to more Sweets and Snacks shows than I. But I feel like everything to me was hitting me as very like social media trend, if that makes sense. Like, how can we make it tinier? How can we make it weirder? How can we make it, how can we put a really sour flavor and a really sweet flavor together? But all of it was striking me as very like, how can we create a viral snack or how can we create a viral sweet? Are you seeing that? Is that how it's always been? Or is there kind of some of that social media viralness embedded in that show now?
I love that observation. That is so cool. Yeah, this was probably my 10th or 11th, I would say. And I was actually really intrigued with all the innovation that I saw, and I'll explain this in an odd way. I some years, and this is not just for candy and snack, but some years I see innovation that I call the 4-year-olds playing soccer innovation. In other words, we've discovered that protein is big, or we've discovered that keto diets are big, and literally all innovation ends up sitting around those very narrow trends. And so while that's of course intriguing and you see some really small innovations becoming big, at the same time, I think we often have to keep in mind that a keto diet or a high protein diet, that yes, they're popular, but at the end of the day, there are still a lot of people who buy conventional candies and would be intrigued with a new flavor or a new mashup of brands or something like that. And I would say this year I saw a much better representation of just a whole lot of new that wasn't necessarily sitting in one area. You probably saw a lot of innovation relative to lower sugar, no sugar. That was big last year. That continued to be big this year. And that was both on the candy and the snack side. But I would also say, just as you pointed out, that there were just some innovations where you're like, what in the world? How do you dream this up? And I do think that is sort of the impact of a TikTok, where we have to keep in mind food in general is very social and cultural, but especially the candy and snack categories have a lot of permissibility to have some fun with it. And like the number one word that people associate with non-chocolate candy is fun. And so I really think that this industry took that fun and ran with it, whether that was packaging, just funny flavor mix-ups, just unexpected textures, something starting out sweet, ending up sour. So yeah, I was positively impressed with all the innovation that I saw at the show.
Nice, nice. So it sounds like this year maybe more than years past. It's like there's trends popping up across different categories, not just concentrated in one place or one trend. That's
Exactly. And
cool.
that's something that
Uh,
we see a lot in the surveys as well, right? We always, as an industry, sit and worry about, well, what is innovation? If it's just a different size packaging, or maybe we make it a different color for a different holiday, is it still innovation? Well, in the mind of the shopper, what we see in our surveys is that yes, that is absolutely innovation. And so if you look, for instance, at brands, you see that the boomer generation is very brand loyal. There were some big brands, not just in candy and snack, but really across the entire store, that are just still really strong brands with that generation. And therefore, boomers love seeing innovation within the brands that they love, whether that is a new flavor or maybe a new packet size or maybe a plant-based version of their favorite treat, etc. Whereas the younger generations, they're much more adventurous, and that's probably part of what we see behind all that innovation as well. They love innovation coming from different countries, unique and completely unexpected flavors. So there's definitely a lot of different innovations that all drive home beautifully.
when you're saying boomers and baby boomers and the brand's innovation within the brand, you're making me think of who does Snickers? Is that Mars? Am I making that up?
Yes. Yeah.
Mars.
Yeah.
Mars. When I was over there talking to them, they said they had brought back that I think they call it like Rockin' Road Snickers. It's like kind of like a Rocky Road version of Snickers. They said they had brought that back because they had gotten such good feedback and that they were getting such positive
Ah,
feedback about the flavor. So I wonder if that fits in that, popular brand or recognizable brand with just a little tweak and a little bit of innovation. But then on the
yeah.
other flip side of that, I'm thinking of that slime product that you and I were talking about. Or what is it? Was not slime, but tell me about that one and how that went viral and what they
Yeah,
did
I
with
have it
that.
sitting here on my shelf. So it's called slime liquors, which, this I think falls exactly in that product that you were talking about. Like, what in the world? How you dreamed this up? But it is just a TikTok trend waiting to happen. So yes, I was doing the research on what we call non-chocolate candy. So anything that is not chocolate, things like gummies and marshmallows and caramels, you name it. And I needed an example of something that had gone viral, just to show that candy is a social media darling. People love researching it, crafting with it, baking with it. So I was curious whether or not we had a good example of something that gone viral. Well, very quickly I landed on these slime liquors. And so what happened was somebody posted, I would say, maybe a 10-second little video of her sitting in the car. She had bought several of these slime liquors at Five Below, and she just licked it and showed that her tongue turned blue or red, whatever color it was. And little by little, that video went viral, and Five Below sold out in absolutely no time. Walmart jumped on it. Everybody wanted it, and it ended up driving an 1100% increase in unit sales because of going viral. So one of my big recommendation in listening to stories like that always is, think about what you would do if and when your product goes viral, because it takes a little bit to gear up for an 1100% increase in unit sales. And we all know these TikTok trends can come and gone very, very quickly. So is it something that you can react to? How would you react to it? How are you dealing with new distribution versus existing clients that might be looking for a product? So it's almost like having that fire drill plan in place, in case an emergency happens, but for all the good reasons in this particular case. But yeah, certainly the impact can be tremendous.
In case of slime licking emergency.
There you go. What a
Press this
headline,
button.
huh?
And I think the slime people were able to manage that increase, right? Is that not right, Anne-Marie?
Correct. Yes. I don't know how, but yeah. And they also, I would say, did a tremendous job in keeping the trend going. So what started in the dollar chain channel, the Five Below channel, then ended up going to super centers and supermarkets, but also was kept alive in candy stores, where more than a year later, you still saw little billboards and posters in the window about we have slime liquors, and just really keeping that trend going of it being a fun novelty item that the kids love. So there's really a plan in place to take advantage of trends like this.
I'm thinking of too. I think this was in your presentation, but I also could be making it up. So tell me. But I'm remembering like those. Remember the peeps and like putting people who do crafting with the candy and that being a way to kind of market. So like not just having the peeps, but having the peeps in little graham cracker cars with mushroom wheels or something really cute
Yeah,
and appealing to people that way.
yeah, I
And I was
agree.
thinking that too with even the way that remember Giardelli I think had they weren't just giving us their squares of their chocolate at the show, their new flavors. They were putting their new flavor squares in a s'more, like a gourmet s'more, and handing that out. Obviously, that was a major hit that people were lined up to get these Giardelli s'mores. So, yeah,
Right.
talk to me more about like why is the packaging of snacks or the marketing in that way important?
I think it all is about getting that one extra trip, whether that is a trip down the aisle during an everyday a setting, or one extra trip during one of the seasons. And so, what we are seeing is that especially the millennial generation loves to personalize things. So, it's not necessarily about just buying the Easter basket or buying a heart shaped box of chocolate. Oftentimes they love doing something with it and personalize their gift, in addition to, of course, they grew up with apps like Pinterest, etc. So what we're seeing is that oftentimes that idea of baking with candy or crafting or decorating, right, making these centerpieces with peeps or whatever it is, really drives that second trip down the aisle in a season. So the particular video that you're describing was something that popped up on a Facebook with a friend posting it. And my point there was it required Twinkies, pretzels, Smarties, Peeps, and I forget, I feel like there was another candy. But point being, by the time you have to buy 4 or 5 ingredients to make this cute little craft car, you probably spend 10, $15 versus maybe buying just one pack of Peeps. And so these are great ways for brands to engage on these popular platforms, not only giving people inspiration, but with a little luck, also people now influencing their friends and family to do this, as well as drive that extra trip and drive a bigger basket than it would have been if we're just buying items to put into the Easter basket. Because that's something important to keep in mind. If you look at the love for candy among younger generations, they sit a little bit more on the non chocolate side, but they also sit a little bit more on the snack side of things. And so just finding different ways, like the gourmet s'mores you described, another great way to say, here's just another way to do something, which can drive a whole other usage occasion where it's perhaps just attractive for a whole other reason if people like, say, dark chocolate or gourmet chocolate.
And this idea of how can we grow basket size is obviously something retailers can be leaning hard into too. I'm seeing especially around the holidays with these ideas. I could see a display in store with those ingredients surrounding it. I could see them leaning into retailers and grocers also leaning into, hey, let's do something cute on our social media to promote this package or to get people get that basket size up.
Yeah, for real. I mean, I remember being in a Winco around Christmas time, and Winco has all those bulk bins of candy. And so, what they had done was take those traditional boxes to make a gingerbread house that come with like 6 candies, but they had put it in their bulk area and pre sorted all their red and white and green and, candies that you can really use well for gingerbread houses. They were sitting in the bins right beneath those gingerbread house kits. And I thought, what a wonderful way to now, instead of just selling a $10, $15 gingerbread house kit, now buy a whole bunch of bulk candy so that you can really make a dream house. So yeah, I think if you have a crafty person in the store, that can actually be a wonderful way to give people a fun thing to do, but also drive a basket size. And then in the current environment, that is so important. I mean, I've never seen so many months of baskets just going down and down and down in units. So we're still looking across categories. We're still looking good in dollar sales because of inflation, but we continue to see fewer items per trip. And that has everything to do with people just trying to get out of the store, spending about the same. So it really does come down to optimizing when people are in the store or ordering online, of course, as well.
It's great. That's a great takeaway. Anne-Marie, as a final, can you give me like what's your product takeaway, or what's one product that is still lingering with you? I know there's probably many, but is there one that was like haunting your dreams? Because I know there probably was one, multiple for me, but I can think of one myself as well. But I'm curious if one product was kind of sticking with you long after the show floor went dark.
Ooh, that is a hard question. I would say on the candy side, I saw some really fun innovations relative to sour. Sour is just one of the areas that we really see gearing up in sales. And so that whole idea of going ultra and just crazy colors, changing flavors, I think to your point, that is exactly what, might create a viral trend, or just people walking down the aisle going, oh, wow, that sounds fun. I'm going to try that. On the snack side, I would say I saw a lot of innovations relative to pecans and other nut combinations, which is, I think, in a way, is a nod to the whole protein trend and what have you, healthful snacking. But were some really fun combinations that I hadn't seen before. So yeah, too many to even think of one. How about you?
I am going to make a strong plug for the cheese witch that we tried,
Yes,
which is
yes.
literally which is literally salami or some other kind of meat sandwiched between two pieces of cheese called cheese witch. Yeah, that was absolutely delightful and
Forgot about
delicious,
that
and
one.
clearly something that we probably all do on a regular basis is make our own cheese witch. But there was something very delightful about someone creating a cheese witch for you, a prepackaged cheese witch. So I know
I agree.
I was texting with the person we were at the show with a few days after that about cheese witch. So yes, it definitely lingered with me.
Yeah, that's just one of those innovations where, to your point, we probably all made that at home, but somebody took it and ran with it. And that's really the type of innovations that you find in those 10 by 10s in the back of the show, or, just really, just people taking some innovation and running with it. It's wonderful to see.
It really is. Amory, anything else? Any final takeaway from sweets and snacks?
Research Geek has to, of course, throw in some numbers here. I mean, the economic pressure, it remains tremendous. In March, we saw millions and millions coming out of the market with the end of the special allotments and SNAP. We saw with credit card debt reach an all-time high. We see continued 8-9% inflation. And while that is moderated from the double digits that it was before, we are now looking at 29 to 30% higher prices than we did prior to the pandemic. So all that to illustrate that the economic pressure is real. And that, as I mentioned, has resulted in just baskets where people manage the total cost with units. And so this is really a big call out to be creative in the store, cross merchandising. People recognize that home cooked meals are healthier oftentimes, as well as cost effective. But I think where restaurants often get a plus in the mind of the consumer is they believe it's easier and faster and more convenient. So I really think the idea of integrating the deli prepared items a little bit more with the grocery trip, if you put in an order and you're picking it up around between 4 and 6 or 7 p.m., offer people, hey, did you want to order some rotisserie chicken or what have you? So really becoming aggressive on that time piece as well, I think, can just be another leg of the many legged stools to continue to drive sales in months to come.
Nice, nice. Great. Well, thank you so much. I know we'll be including some of the stats like from your candy presentation at the show in our story, but is there anywhere else that people can will be able to find that report?
Sure, absolutely. Yes, candyusa.com. NCA has many resources. And of course, I was one of many presenters there with some fantastic education. So, a lot of research to be found there at NCA's website. Again, that's candyusa.com.
Great, wonderful. All right. Well, thanks so much, Anne-Marie. It's always a pleasure having you on, and I'm sure we'll have you back on soon.
All right, sounds great.